This Motorola and E.F. Johnson 700 MHz radio training is being provided by the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals Office of Public Health Center for Community Preparedness. As a reminder, we will be using Motorola XTS 2500 series radios and E.F. Johnson 5100 series radios for demonstration purposes in this training segment. Welcome to Part 3 of the 700 MHz radio training series. Part 1 was a basic overview of the Motorola and E.F. Johnson radios. In Part 2, you saw more in-depth training on the fleet map with discussion of zones, channels, and interoperability. This segment of the training will be a live demonstration of how to change zones and channels on both the Motorola and E.F. Johnson radios using the fleet map for guidance. These types of trainings are very important for enhanced understanding of radio functionality. This segment was developed following radio operability tests which revealed weaknesses with changing zones and finding the correct channel. This is a live demonstration which focuses primarily on how to change zones and channels on your E.F. Johnson and Motorola radios. It will cover using the fleet map as a guide to find the correct channel and zone also. There will be other very important topics covered on these radios to increase the user's understanding and knowledge of radio functionality. These topics have been selected based on improvement plans and with the input and assistance of the OPH Public Health Emergency Response Coordinators. All feedback is important and encouraged when planning future training modules. If there are topics regarding radio operability or satellite communication equipment you would like to see covered in these modules, please contact the CCP Tactical Communications Officer with your suggestions. Throughout this training, we will be referring to terms such as fleet map, zones including 700 MHz and 800 MHz, channels, accessories including boom mic and belt clip. We will begin with the Motorola XTS 2500i model radio for this demonstration. As discussed in previous training segments, you must install the radio's antenna before using the radio. If you try to use the radio without the antenna attached, the radio will make a sustained tone and the LED screen will say out of range. Once you put the antenna on the radio, the screen will go back to normal operation mode, and when you push the push to talk button, the PTT button, the radio will operate correctly. The battery for the Motorola radio is at the back. To remove the battery, press the buttons on each side down and lift the battery away from the radio. The state property tag is located on the back of the radio behind the battery for state-issued radios. For these state-issued radios, the Tactical Communications Coordinator for your office or agency should maintain a list of which radios are assigned to specific personnel in your area with the state property tag number noted. This information should be included with the radio roster that is submitted quarterly to the CCP Tactical Communications Officer. To put the battery back on the radio, please ensure that the bottom is lined up correctly and lift toward the radio. Angle it back toward the radio and it'll click into place. Make sure the battery is charged by placing it on the charger while ensuring the radio is placed in the grooves of the charger. When a radio is placed correctly on the charger, the light will come on. It will be red at the beginning and then turn green as it's charging. If it is not correctly into the charger, the light will not appear. These chargers are sort of temperamental, so you need to make sure that it's lined up correctly for the battery to be charging. There are a couple of commonly used accessories with the 700 MHz radios. One of these is the belt clip. With the Motorola radios, to attach the belt clip, make sure the metal attachment is lined up with the grooves on the radio and slide it down until it clicks into place. To remove the belt clip, press the metal tab at the top of the metal attachment of the clip while sliding the clip up and off of the radio. The second most commonly used radio accessory is the boom mic. If you have these available, they might be useful during an event. To put the mic on the radio, you must first remove the mic cover from the universal connector. Sometimes these covers are very tight. You might need to use something to pry them off the radio, like a flathead screwdriver or a letter opener. You take it off from the top and angle it down. To attach the mic, you put the bottom of the attachment in and angle it. Make sure it's lined up with the clip at the top, and it will snap into place. When the mic's on, you use this instead of the PTT button. To remove the mic, you slide the button at the top back and angle it out and down. To put the cover back on the universal connector, you have to align the bottom and press up to the top, and it will snap back into place. As mentioned in previous segments, the knob to the far left at the top is the power and volume knob. When you turn the knob, it will click on and words will appear on the LED screen. Once the radio is on, you use the knob to adjust the volume. The knob in the middle of the radio is the channel adjustment knob. Under this knob is an LED light that will come on when the radio is being used to transmit calls. Look at the radio's LED screen. At the very top are the symbols which were discussed in previous segments. Below these symbols, the name of the channel the radio is set for appears. Remember that all active channels we will be using are 700 MHz channels, which is indicated by the star in front of the name. The zones are also indicated with the star in front of their name. Zones and channels without the star in front are 800 MHz channels. These channels and zones will be discussed later in further depth. Below the channel name to the far left of the screen is the word zone, right above a button with one dot on it. Please pay close attention to this section as it will provide you with tips on how to find a channel in a different zone using the fleet map to help you. Remember that when you are looking at the Motorola radio's LED screen, the channel name shows and not the zone name, which is different from the E.F. Johnson radios that shows the zone name first before the channel name. You may still need the fleet map even with the E.F. Johnson radios to make this process easier. This will be discussed with a live demonstration provided later in the segment, but we will look closely at the fleet map at this time to demonstrate how it can be helpful to you when searching for channel and zones. The channel numbers at the tops of the radio are small. If you cannot see these numbers, you can use the fleet map to determine which number the channel is on and which zone it is in. Also remember that each zone can have 16 channels programmed on it, but most zones do not have that many. Any unprogrammed channels will be noted on the fleet map as such and will say unprogrammed on the radio's LED screen when the knob is turned to them. When you find the channel name you want, the zone name and number is at the top of the column and the channel number is at the far left of the fleet map. This will be discussed in detail and demonstrated later in this segment. To change channels, use the channel selector knob at the top of the radio. As you can see, the numbers on the knob correspond to channel numbers on the fleet map. When a channel is unprogrammed, it will say so on the screen and emit a continuous tone. The tone will stop once you change back to a programmed channel. To change zones on the Motorola radio, you press the button with one dot on it under the word zone on the LED screen. You will only see the channel name when you press this button. Use the left and right arrows to change zones. When you reach the zone you want, hit the home button to return to the normal operating screen. Once you're at this screen, you can use the channel selection knob to change channels in the zone. As you are changing zones, if you go through a zone that does not have a channel program for the channel number your radio is set to, you will see the unprogrammed message and hear the sustained tone if you pause on the zone. If you get to an 800 MHz zone, it will not have the star in front of the channel name. If you hit the home button, out of range will appear on the LED screen. If you see this message, it means you need to change to a 700 MHz zone. Remember that 700 MHz zones and channels have the star symbol in front of their names. One thing to note when looking at the fleet map is that we do not use all the zones listed on the complete map. These are the zones that are most likely to be used during an event. We normally use Zone 8, which is named Star OPH on the fleet map. On occasion, Zone 11 might be used also by OPH staff, which is named Star DHH EOC on the fleet map and will show up as Star EOC on the EF Johnson radio screen. Zone 11 contains the TAC channels which might be needed during an event. The hospitals use Zone 10, which is named Star HRSA on the fleet map. Printing this modified map might be useful to find the channels that you would need during an event a little easier. To find specific channels in different zones using the fleet map, the first step is to find the channel you need, for example, the Star DHH TAC 1 channel. When you find the channel, move your finger to the far left to see that this is channel 2. If your radio is set to Zone 8 as it normally would be, you can see that channel 2 in this zone is Star OPH Reach 2 on the fleet map. Once you know this information, you can use it to make changing the zones to find the needed channels easier, especially with the Motorola radios. The main tip to remember is to change your radio to the same channel number as the one you need in the new zone before starting to change zones. Please watch the following demonstration. Pay close attention to this section. We are about to cover trying to find specific channels in different zones on the Motorola radio. When searching for a channel in different zone on the Motorola radio, it might be helpful to use the fleet map because the zone names do not appear on the radio's LED screen when you are changing zones as it does on the EF Johnson radio. The first step is to look at the fleet map and find the channel you need, for example, the Star DHH TAC 1 channel. When you find the channel, you can see the zone the channel is in. Star DHH TAC 1 is in Zone 11. Once you find the channel, move your finger to the far left to see that this is channel 2 in Zone 11. Your radio is probably set to Zone 8, which is the Star OPH zone. If it is in Zone 8, the channel you will see for your channel 2 in this zone is Star OPH Reach 2 on the fleet map. Change your radio to this channel before starting to change zones. Hit the zone button and use the right or left arrow to change zones. When you get to Zone 11, the Star DHH TAC 1 channel name will appear. Hit the home button. You are now in Zone 11 and can use the channel selector knob to change channels in the zone. We will now demonstrate with the EF Johnson 5100 series radio. As discussed in part 1 of the radio training segments, the power volume knob for this radio is on the far left and towards the back of the radio. As with Motorola radios, the antenna must be connected before using the EF Johnson radio or they will not function properly. The battery for the EF Johnson radio is in the back. To remove the battery, press the button on the bottom and tilt the battery up and out. The state property tag will be found on the back of the radio under the battery if you have a state-issued radio. Again, you must track these tag numbers by which personnel they are assigned in your office or agency for inclusion in your quarterly radio roster, which is submitted to the CCP Tactical Communication Officer. To replace the battery, ensure the top of the battery is lined up and slid into place at the back of the radio, and tilt the battery down toward the radio until it clicks into place. For the belt clip with the EF Johnson radio, it has to be installed when the battery is off. Line up the metal attachment of the belt clip to the grooves in the radio and slide down to place the belt clip on. Then replace the battery. To remove the belt clip, you have to remove the battery. Pull the metal clip at the top of the metal attachment of the belt clip and slide the clip off. Now replace the battery. To charge the battery for the EF Johnson radio, place the radio in the charger. Ensure It is charging by making sure the light comes on. When the light is on, that means it is charging correctly. The E.F. Johnson radios also have boom mics that can be used. To attach this mic, you use the same method as the Motorola radios. You must have the bottom of the attachment in the slot and press it toward the top of the radio. There is not an additional piece at the top of the E.F. Johnson radios, but the top of the mic does have to align with the space at the top of the radio. Again, you use this mic once you have it attached instead of the PTT button. To remove the mic, you slide the button at the top down and out while angling the mic out from the radio. When the E.F. Johnson radio is turned on, the LED light will flash and the screen will go through a series of messages. The name of the zone the radio is set to will appear right before the name of the channel the radio is on appears. Again, this is different from the Motorola radios, which do not show the zone on the LED screen when you turn them on. On the E.F. Johnson radio, you can adjust the volume with the power and volume knob, and the channels with the channel selector knob that is in the middle of the radio towards the front. As with the Motorola radios, if there are unprogrammed channels for the zone the radio is in, the screen will say unprogrammed. A sustained tone will sound and will end when you go back to a programmed channel. To change zones on the E.F. Johnson radios, use the up and down arrows. As you change zones, the name of the zone will appear, and there will be a pause, then the name of the channel will appear. With the E.F. Johnsons, you can look at the name of the zone to find the channel you want with the fleet map. As with the Motorola radios, the 700 MHz channels and zones will have the star symbol before their name. The 800 MHz zones will not have the star, and the message will change to out of RNG. There is not a full space for the full word range on the screen. As with the Motorola's, change the zones until you are back to a 700 MHz one. We will now demonstrate how to properly use the radios to communicate during an event. When speaking on the radio, use clear language. You need to identify yourself by your call sign and ask for the person you want to respond with their call sign.
EOC 1 to EOC 2.
When receiving a message and you want to indicate that it was understood, you can respond by identifying yourself and saying 10-4 copy or copy that.
Thank you, EOC 2. We need 5 oxygen tubes to region 9.
EOC 2, copy that.
As mentioned in the first video of this series, both types of radios have a push-to-talk button on the left side. This is called the PTT button for short. Now we would like to demonstrate some common errors that can be prevented if we follow simple protocols. When you're about to use the radio, please remember that several people are using the same channels during these events or drills. Wait to make sure no one is talking before starting your message. Otherwise, the following will occur.
This is EOC 2 calling EOC 3. Please respond.
I need to call the EOC for something.
Go ahead.
The tone means that someone else had already pressed their PTT button before you. Release your PTT button to end the tone. Remember to wait until the channel is clear before trying to use the radio.
Copy that. Thanks.
Also, after you speak, release your PTT button or the person who is trying to respond will hear this same tone. Remember to push to talk and release to listen.
This is EOC 1 calling EOC 2.
This is EOC 2 calling EOC 1. Please respond.
This is EOC.
As you can see, if you're speaking on a radio with another one in your hand near your mouth, feedback will occur. Do not try to use 2 radios at once like this to prevent feedback.
So,
Also, feedback will occur if 2 people near each other have their radios on high volume. If you're in a room with several people with radios, let one person have their volume on high and the rest turn theirs down on low to prevent this.
EOC original. This EOC 1, you copy?
This concludes Part 3 of the Radio Operability Training Series. If you have any questions or comments on this or about future training segments, please call me, Jean Hopp, the CCP Tactical Communications Officer, at 225-354-3526 or by email at jean.hopp@la.gov.